Every once in a while, I pick up a game with the intention of finishing it, but I lose interest quickly and move on to something more exciting. That's the case with my first attempt at Dark Void, but I popped it back into the PS3, intending to finish it, no matter what it took. And it took a lot. In Dark Void, you play as a pilot named Will, who is traveling with his ex, Ava. In their voyage, they fly over the Bermuda Triangle, where the plane crashes. They set out to find some help, to find themselves in an unknown world, complete with alien-like creatures that are hell-bent on taking over the human presence. These creatures are known as walkers, species from a past era that are attempting to claim the Earth as their own world, as their own hometown doesn't exist anymore. Later on in the game, and minor spoiler alert here, you find out that these guys are worshipped as high-end religious leaders, almost like gods. The game's lore explains that these aliens allegedly told the humans how to survive thousands of years ago. Now they are mad because the humans became self-sufficient. Serves them right. Dark Void is a 3D action game, and I can't help but immediately compare it to the Uncharted games. Will is also voiced by Nolan North, the voice of Nathan Drake, so that probably doesn't help much either. But you simply run around, shooting walkers in a third-person view, taking cover, throwing grenades, much like Uncharted. The main difference is that you're not hunting for relics or climbing like a primate. Since it's a shooter, you get weapons. There are 6 firearms that you can locate. The machine gun you start the game with has a pretty large clip, allowing you to fire for longer times before needing to reload, and tended to be my weapon of choice in most situations. Most of the other are firearms from the Walker race. There's their type of assault rifle, which isn't bad, some odd railgun that seems suspiciously underpowered. There's a magnet rifle that feels like a crap version of the gravity gun from Half-Life 2. An electric rifle is available, but I didn't really try it out after my experiences with the other weapons. Finally, a sniper rifle that, again, doesn't have a good punch to it. Once you find one of the weapons, you can swap it between chapters or at special weapon lockers located on the occasion during the stages. Upon killing your foes, you'll also earn tech points. These tech points can be utilized to upgrade your weapons up to 2 times. Upgrades are actually fairly expensive, so you might want to consider all of your options before committing to something. Personally, I felt the upgrades to the assault rifles would be a good start, since explosive rounds in the human rifle and the explosive corpses in the alien one aren't bad ideas. I will admit, however, that if I knew how much flying combat I was going to encounter, I would have upgraded my jetpack's weaponry a bit faster, since you get higher caliber rounds and then an unlimited stream of rockets to fire at the enemy ships. Wait, slow it down. Did I say jetpack? Flying combat? Sure did. A lot of the emphasis of the game is on the flying introduced to you early on in the prologue, and then a bit further into the game when Will himself gets a jetpack. At first, he can only hover in the air and utilize vertical combat, which I'll get into shortly. But later on, he does get to fire at enemy ships and fly around. Unlike the standard third-person foot gun battles, the flying battles allow you to fire endlessly. Most of these areas are large canyons, valleys, and so on, allowing you to have enough room to maneuver around and attempt to succeed in your dogfighting. These aerial battles aren't as fun as they should be. For one, the enemy ships take a hell of a lot of rounds before going down, and that's even if you can hit them. The vessels are marginally faster than you and tend to enjoy circling you as you attempt to target them. This makes actually striking them with your bullets much more difficult than it should be. Honestly, I'd be fine with this if the end of the game didn't tend to keep throwing these battles at you constantly, with almost reckless abandon, as if the developers were proud of these segments. As for losing track of the targets, sure, you can attempt to use the minimap to locate the enemy, but with the way that they move, it can be frustrating. You can use the shoulder buttons to look at the closest threat, but this doesn't put the crosshair on them, forcing you to awkwardly attempt to focus on the target with one button, move the crosshair to intercept them, and then also use the left stick to move Will himself to avoid striking something, as it's very easy to die with 1 or 2 hits into a mountain. You do get access to a boost for these aerial adventures, but it doesn't really seem to help that much. There are also evasion maneuvers available, done with weird double analog stick movements after clicking R3, but I found them to be somewhat unnecessary. Sure, in the final boss battle they do help to avoid the boss's long-range attacks, but in most areas, I didn't find them to be terribly useful. The way I tended to take care of the more frustrating aerial battles is to commit a bit of Grand Theft Auto. If you fly close enough to an enemy ship, you can press circle to attempt to hijack it. You'll have to go through a few quick time events, and if you can succeed, You will throw the enemy pilot overboard, or shoot them dead and then commandeer the vehicle for yourself. These ships have unlimited primary shot ammunition, but limited secondary shots, along with health that doesn't regenerate. That means that if your ship is starting to look a little rough, or if the game tells you to eject, you might want to bail to avoid a messy death. Okay, enough with the aerial stuff. There's another somewhat unique type of gunfight you'll get into, the vertical combat. At times, you'll be able to press square to peer over the edge of a cliff. In these segments, you get the perspective of peeking over your cover to take out the enemy threats. You then press square again to move to the next ledge, with him carefully leaping down or using a jetpack to fly up. These segments are interesting, but feel kind of clunky to navigate. If you're not careful and move the left stick in the wrong direction, it's easy to fall off to your death unless you can quickly utilize your jetpack to regain your position. Sadly, I'd rather do these segments than the open-air gunfighting, but there's not as much of an emphasis on these. I guess that comes to my main complaint of Dark Void. It's just kind of bland. The two interesting aspects, the vertical combat and the dogfighting, feel too clunky to be fun. The normal on-foot third-person combat is your standard run-of-the-mill stuff, with cover to be had, enemies taking half to a full clip to take down, grenades to avoid, and hundreds of same-looking walkers coming at you. There's not a lot of quote-unquote powerful walkers to contend with, and the ones that do show up feel like they go down semi-easily. Even the areas you journey through don't look too terribly interesting, with massive deserted canyons and metallic chambers being super popular. There is a jungle you drudge through early on before you get to an Aztec-style temple, but that's the most color you're probably going to see in the game. As for the story, it seems interesting enough, with the whole walkers being like God storyline, but then it just goes bat crap crazy. Oh, spoilers coming. Will is claimed to be the key to allowing the people to get out of the Bermuda Triangle, but this is never explained why. I started to lose interest in the story about halfway through the game, so by the time this stuff came up, I just didn't care. In addition, some of the story scenes feel like they were cut apart and pieced together. You'll get a small scene, fade to black, and then another scene that makes you wonder what the hell you just missed. It's hard to explain exactly what I mean by this, but just understand that it feels like this is the original game with a director's cut of 10 hours of cut content being put together for a later time. I don't even know if that makes any sense, so let's just move on. Related to the odd story presentation, there's also a boss battle against something called the Collector. It's a massive organic creature that seems to have pus sacs that you need to destroy. This thing feels like it belongs more in a Dead Space game than Dark Void, as there's no other horror element anywhere in here, but nope, it's here's a late game boss. It really does feel out of place, and I have no idea why the developers felt like it belonged. The other big problem with Dark Void is that it just doesn't feel smooth. I ran into a bunch of performance issues playing the game. Sadly, two of them, a frame rate drop of down to about 10 frames per second and a glitched scene transition, weren't captured due to me being a moron and forgetting to swap the capture program's video input option. But other things, like myself dying, falling to the ground and never respawning, were captured. The objective markers can be a bit misleading, such as here where the game tells me to report to the barracks. I go to where the marker is, and nothing happens. To find out, I needed to keep going past the marker. I've had sound effects completely cut out, like here where the bullets stopped making any noise. And your one ally, Atem, seemed to really like these turrets, as it took me a good 10 minutes before I realized he was running headfirst into two of them as I was trying to take care of the foot soldiers nearby. Also, the game has to load when accessing weapon lockers. I don't understand this. The stage is already loaded in, and it takes a second to bring up the weapon locker, so why do a full load afterwards? Dark Void starts off promising enough, but not even halfway through the game, I got really bored. It's not a terrible game, but it's definitely not one of Capcom's finest. I would say it's an average game, but with the performance issues, the poorly presented story, the frustrating dogfighting, and the clunky vertical gunplay, I feel like it drops down a few notches on the scoreboard. Luckily, the game is cheap, as I bought it for $2. I can't say that it's worth much more than that. Final score? 3 out of 7. This is Reaper. Happy fragging.